This is Christopher Bruza. Welcome back to part 2 of the Accuracy International AX barrel change and load workup. So in the last video we changed the barrel and then we discussed what our first steps of load workup are. Now the barrel we changed is the same as the previous one, but we aren't going to assume that powder charge and seating depth and everything like that works for this rifle. It's probably going to end up close, but not exact. So we went to the range with 10 different powder charges, 37.8 to 40.5 grains. Previously I was shooting 39.3, which is why we kind of centered around that. 5 shots of each, so 50 shots at 10 targets and 10 different powder charges. And what we're looking for, the theory of this is explained by Dan Newberry with the optimal charge weight, and Google that, it will turn up tons of info and as to why we're looking at this. But what we're looking at is where the group is in position to the point of aim and how that changes with powder charge. If you don't want to watch me at the range shooting 50 shots, the first comment, which is pinned, has a timestamp in it. Just click it and you'll bypass that part of the video. So we aren't too concerned with group size, assuming it's not extremely atrocious. Anything in MOA-ish or below is fine. The next video is going to deal with tuning that. This video, we're looking at group position in comparison to the point of aim. So here's our target, and you'll see that for this first powder charge, we're roughly at 6 o'clock. This is probably more about 5:30. Again, probably about 5:30. And we've got a solid 5 o'clock here. We're kind of moving over to 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3:30, 3:30-ish, 3:30-ish, and then we're definitely at 3 o'clock here. So we're going to look at the way this group moves as well as what's happening to our velocity at these different powder charges. We're going to weigh the two and come up with a solution for our next range trip. And to analyze the target, I used a program called OnTarget. It's free, or the trial version is free, which works for a certain number of days. But what that gives me is I can put in the groups, and it gives me group size, which again, not a big concern for those who do care. They range from 0.533 MOA to 1.115 MOA. So reasonable results given this barrel's got less than 50 shots on it. It's going to improve, and the next video we will be doing that. So you put in your point of aim and it gives you a offset, a horizontal offset and a vertical offset from your point of aim. And we want to look at the movement between powder charges in that offset. So to do that, I graphed on the x-axis the powder charge, and on the y-axis the change in group position, or actually the absolute value of the change in group position. I also put on there the radius to that group position, which is the quadratic mean, or the RMS value, and it's a slightly normalized version of the x and y axis. So I'll put this up here, but what we're looking at is these dips. We want to be right here at 0, and right here you see not much change in group between 38 and 38.5. But it's very concerning that right here you've got an asymptote shooting off to, we didn't shoot below that, but shooting off to who knows how high. I mean, maybe it comes up here, and it's fairly narrow. Right here we've got another dip that's much, much wider, and it's a greater powder charge, so a higher velocity, which in PRS shooting is, if you have two equal loads, you always want the faster one. You don't care if your barrel burns out faster. Hunting rifle might be completely different, but we want velocity, assuming you're within the 3150 feet per second speed limit. So the second dip here looks pretty good. It's much wider than the first dip, and then you've got another one here before you shoot off to another asymptote. We would not want to be working a load up in, say, the 38.8 grain area. what that leads us to believe is at, say, 38.8, your barrel, when you shoot it, it vibrates, and you have antinodes and nodes. A node is the highest amplitude. So if you were to wiggle a piece of string, the high points, the points that are farthest outside of your hand are the nodes. The antinodes are in line with your two fingers. The optimal charge weight process makes some assumptions, and it's probably not entirely accurate, but the process tries to get an antinode at the muzzle. So your muzzle's not pointing up, down, anywhere. It's barely moving as your barrel vibrates when you fire the bullet. So we want to look at that change in position. But beyond that, we're also concerned with velocity and what happens to the bullet velocity. So if we end up with, like my previous barrel, 39.3 grains, if we're making loads, and I mean nothing's 100% accurate, if we get 39.2 and 39.4 for powder charges instead of 39.3, what's going to happen to our bullet in comparison to our point of aim? Is it going to shift a lot between those slightly different powder charges? And this is trying to minimize that. And on the same vein, is the velocity going to change a lot? And you will see there are points where the velocity kind of evens out. So that's the next piece of data we're looking at. And what I did is I graphed powder charge in grains compared to velocity. So this is a very simple line graph. Comes up and you see it kind of round, plateau, and then you see the slope increase. And you've got another plateau here. So it looks like this one is right around 39.4 or 39.5. So if we have like 39.6 and say 39.3 grains, our velocity is not going to change as much as if we were in here in 39.8 versus say 39.6. I mean, our velocity is going to change a lot, so our bullet's going to behave, the drop is going to be considerably different downrange. So we're trying to avoid that. So you've got two plateaus which you'd want to look at. With the other graph, you can see around 38.3 we had a nice dip. But 38.3 right here, our velocity was still changing a lot. So we don't want to look at that point. We're coming up to the next one. We got a nice dip around, say 39.3. And looking at this graph, we've got a good dip right here around 39.3. It's centered more around 39.5. And you can see we're right on the edge of the velocity. So right now I am looking at probably around 39.4 as my ideal velocity, and that corresponds. So right here you've got another dip around 39.8. 39.8, we don't have a dip here. We've got one slightly further out, but our velocity is changing a lot for the powder charge. So the next step for this is going to be looking at this same type of data for roughly, I'll probably go 39.2, 39.3, 39.4, 39.5, up to say 39.8. But I'll mull that over. I've got a couple of days before I go to the range again. I might focus in around that 39.4 range with 0.1 grains and just hit 0.2 on either side. So what we're trying to do now at our next range trip is focus in on this and get more data points in that area, as well as getting more data points in this area. And the goal here is the most consistent load we can get. And after that, I'm going to look at seating depth. Once I pick a powder charge, I'm going to vary seating depth and look at accuracy. That's when group size is going to matter, and it has a big impact on it, especially, well, just as your entire barrel is moving and vibrating, it's also doing it back here to a certain extent. Not nearly as much. Obviously, you have a mechanical anti-node here, but that the seating depth changes how that bullet is pushed into the rifling and whether it has any yaw or misalignment. So that we'll look at a more narrow range of powder charges and varying the seating depth. From there, we should have a good idea of what we're going to do and work up or make a bunch of loads and get the barrel set up and the scope zeroed, everything for the next competition. Next one I'm scheduled to shoot's May, middle of May. If this is ready, there's one at the end of April I might shoot. So hopefully we'll get to do a match video with after action report. I appreciate you watching. Thank you. Subscribe if you aren't. Share this video with anybody you think would appreciate it. And until next time, enjoy.